Hello and welcome to the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 96, brought to you by Wicked Tree Gear. Today I'm catching up with my buddy Rick Kiley to talk about his continued public land success during the New York bow opener. So stay tuned. All right. What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you if you're listening to this the day that this is put out, and otherwise, happy Thanksgiving to all of you out there. I hope everyone's having some good times in the deer woods. This past week, of course, I returned from my my Ohio trip and then jumped right back into the swamp, trying to figure these deer out. Unfortunately, they've seemed to disappeared to a degree. So I set up on a new location, did a little tracking since we did get some snow on the ground. Thought maybe I could try to figure out where they might be headed to. Did follow a rub line, in which I ended up jumping a buck out of his, out of his little hidey hole, unfortunately. Tried the old, the Andre DeQuisto bump and dump kind of scenario and set up right on that bed, after I ended up bumping him. But he did not return. But I did end up seeing a couple deer, so it wasn't a total loss. I saw a young buck and a couple does, which gave me a little bit of intel as to how they might be starting to use this as all the foliage came down. Because once the greenery comes off the trees in this place, it gets a little sparse. And I was actually able to see a lot further when I was set up in my tree and kind of start to understand what some of the terrain more specifically looked like. Outside of it being completely just kind of covered up in growth during the warmer season or during the growing period or even into early fall, because we did have a little bit of a warmer fall this year, and plenty of rain too. So of course it was gnarly in there. So that's kind of what I've been up to. I'm not going to delay getting right to talking some deer hunting. So this is, if you've listened to this podcast for a little while, you've heard this gentleman speak or join me before. I'm going to talk to Rick Kiley today, and just in full disclosure, I did record this just a handful of weeks ago. As I was getting ready to kind of go on my hunting trip and stuff like that, I wanted to have some stuff in the can. That way I could have a show to put out for you guys. Ended up getting caught up and did the daily rut log, so didn't get a chance to put this out yet. So this is, I think we recorded it around the middle of October. Rick is a guy who manages to just kill hammer deer every year. He hunts public land in New York. He's a hell of a woodsman, and he really knows how to get on good deer. He plays the wind the right way and just the low impact, like all the things you kind of consider, when you're hunting highly pressured public land, especially in a state like New York. But he manages to get it done year in and year out. And in the past 2 years, I've known Rick now for two years. In the past 2 years, he's killed hammer bucks on opening day, both years, opening morning, actually. And a lot of times guys will talk about not hunting the mornings in October. Rick hunts the mornings and kills big deer doing it too. So interesting to talk to him to kind of get his perspective on how he hunts this particular area. This buck particularly was kind of new to him. So we get a little bit of a discussion as to how he thinks or why he thinks this deer showed up. And what the secret sauce is for him in some of these spots that he's hunting. So looking forward to the conversation with Rick. I think you guys will have some stuff that you can take away from what he's doing, and just overall, Rick's a good dude. You'll be hard pressed to find a guy or a girl who is more passionate about hunting whitetails. And he's just recently also, as of this morning, in fact, I was watching on Instagram, he's got a young daughter who is, first off, she's a hell of a shot with a bow. She's actually competing at this point. I want to say she's maybe 11, if I'm not mistaken. And then she took her first, she might be 12. She took her first deer with a bow as of this morning. So whatever today is, November 17th. She took her first deer with a bow. So I know he's super excited about that. I'm excited for him. And we talk a little bit about his daughter kind of coming into archery during this session as well. But before we get started talking to Rick, let's take a quick second to talk about our partners that continue to help us make this podcast possible. First and foremost, we are brought to you by Wicked Tree Gear, the longest lasting, fastest cutting, toughest tree trimming equipment you have ever used. Simply put, the toughest saws on earth. How tough are they? Tough enough to come with a lifetime warranty. And right now, when you visit wickedtreegear.com, use the promo code TRUTH at checkout, and get yourself a 20% discount on your wicked purchase. We're also brought to you by Exodus Outdoor Gear. The new Exodus Trek is a byproduct of consumer voices who have been excited about what Exodus trail cameras have to offer, but just can't fit a $200 camera in their budget, and that's okay. A budget-friendly camera backed by the industry's leading warranty is now here. The Trek comes in at a $145 price point and has the same proprietary shell design as the Lift Series camera, same 5-year warranty, unmatched customer service policies, 0.7-second trigger speed, photo, video, time-lapse, and hybrid modes, all with a simple single-line backlit LED display. You get approximately 20,000 images on one set of lithium batteries. If you'd like to learn more about Exodus trail cameras, check them out at ExodusOutdoorGear.com. And if you'd like what you see, save yourself $20 and use the promo code TRUTH at checkout. We're also brought to you by Glacier Coolers, simply the world's finest. Whether you're hunting, camping, or fishing, you'll enjoy smarter design, stronger construction, and superior insulation of Glacier Coolers. Visit them at glaciercoolers.com. And with that, of course, the holiday season is fast approaching, so any number of these would make a fantastic gift for that hunter in your life. So be sure to use the promotional codes, do a little Christmas shopping, get that out of the way early. Without further ado, let's get Ricky on the line. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today I am joined by a two-time offender, what we'll call him a two-time offender, a veteran of the show. It seems like every October around this time of year, this guy's going to start making an appearance if history tells us anything. But I'm joined by Rick Kiley. Some of you might know him from Instagram as Double Lunger. How you doing, brother?
Hey, man, what's happening, Clint? How are you tonight?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm hanging in there. I know we were lamenting some of our dog woes here offline before we started recording, but he's quiet right now, so I think we're good.
Yeah, my dog's asleep, and so they'll be good till the morning.
Nice. Yeah, I wish I could get this guy to sleep, man. He doesn't know how to sleep. He actually sleeps. I don't think he sleeps at all night while he's in the basement by himself because he lives in the basement. And then anytime on the weekends when we have him upstairs, like when we bring him upstairs in the morning, he's with us all day. Like he wants to sleep all day long until, of course, until nighttime hits, and then he's like wired and ready to rock, and just wants to play and run. I'm like, dude, you got to get on the schedule, brother. You know what I mean? I was like, you're driving me crazy, man. But he's a good pup, though. I think we'll keep him around for a while. I think my daughter might disown me if we didn't keep him around. So I think we're locked in with this fella for a while anyway. But
that's how it is with here. My dogs get away. My little one Sage is out of her mind.
Yeah. She Anna gets she's pretty attached to this guy. Like I think that I could probably move out and she'd be okay with it as long as the dog sticks around. I think she's good.
That's great.
But we're gonna talk some deer hunting here, man, and not dogs necessarily, because you have had a good run, shall we say? And I always look forward to to October rolling around and getting some text messages from you, because you're usually filled with some with some good bucks. But before we get into talking about how your season has unfolded so far, if you wouldn't mind, I know that you've been on before, but if you wouldn't mind, just give us a little bit of background about you, to the folks who are listening, where you're from and what state you're hunting in.
I'm from New York, and I'm a UPS driver, 25 years. I live and breathe bow hunting and white-tailed deer. And at this point, I'm on your show for the third time. And I'm pretty blessed by the homework I do and the animals I'm seeing and the animals I'm fortunate to take. And pretty much besides, work, my family life, the rest of my life and my mind is consumed of shooting a bow and being in the woods, with whitetails.
Yeah, man. And the thing is too is like, and I'll say this, you didn't mention it, man, but you're a whale of an archer just in general, like target archer. You know what I mean? Like you compete and you're a terrific shot. I watched the videos that you put out, with, when you're shooting competition and stuff like that, dude, and you murder it. Quite honestly.
Yeah, well, that's a lot. That's a lot of hard work and through the years, and it's pretty much competition on the local level. And it's something that I've really grown, I'd say, in the past 7-8 years to really work at, change, try new equipment, and And yeah, you know, the hard work always pays off no matter what you do, whether it's shooting a bow, soccer, tennis, anything, you know?
Yeah. So let me ask you this, man. I don't know that I've ever asked you this specifically, but how much, you do a lot of homework, regardless of whether it's shooting your bow or whether it's hunting or whatever the case is, you know, but I'm just curious, you know, how much does the amount of time you put into your bow in terms of competition and target shooting and stuff like that, how much does that confidence kind of play into, you know, your confidence when you hit the tree stand?
That is, I mean, and that's funny that you asked me that, because that's a big issue, that you'll have the weekend warrior that just takes his bow out a month before the season and, okay, it's hitting the middle, to I am so anal, Clint, when it comes to, all right, putting down my 3D bow, putting down my indoor spots bow, you know, that's it. I'm not going for numbers anymore. I want to get my hunting bow going and ready. From bare shaft tuning to shimming my bow to paper tuning to getting my marks, my peep sight height, I mean, arrow, velocity, kinetic energy, you name it. Every little thing is marked on my bow. So in my head, I'm good with it.
Right.
If I was in my tree, if I was in my tree stand and I didn't mark my peep, because if your peep moves, you're kind of screwed. If it moves high, you're going to shoot high. It moves low, you're going to shoot low. If I don't see my Sharpie marks with my peep, just my mind knowing that my peep didn't move, I would be totally out of my mind. So it's very, very important to myself. Might not be to the next guy, but it is in my regiment that my bow has to be 110% the way I like it and the way I tune it in my backyard, in my tree stand in my backyard, than when I go afield.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. So it's interesting because, you know, I'm not to that level of, you know, of an archer of you and Greg. I know, you know, we're all good buddies here with Greg Litzinger, you know, and I've talked about this in past shows. You know, I know you and, you know, the two of you shoot together and spend some time together. And he's a great archer too, and I've spent time with him, you know, and
I learned a lot from Greg too, you know.
Yeah, and
he learned a lot from each other. Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, he spent some time with me last year at the range, and you know, we text a lot, you know, just like we all do as buddies or whatever. And but he's helped me out immensely with my shooting, and that's the one thing I will say that for me is different, probably the past year or going into this season and end of last season, than prior years, is just the confidence that I have in my bow, and it was that kind of commitment to shooting, you know, multiple days a week, putting a lot of arrows through the bow. No, I don't shoot competition, you know, like you guys do. So, you know, I shoot just my hunting bow all year round. But, you know, he helped me change some things with my form that may be more accurate. We spent some time talking about, you know, arrows and how to set up arrows, and, you know, how my arrows should be set up for my bow, and just all those kind of small details, to where it's like, this past week, you know, I harvested a doe on whatever day that was, Saturday, and it was one of those things where it was the first time, you know, that I harvested a deer with a bow that after I released the arrow, that I actually remembered everything that happened, like from the time that I drew back to the time that I released, like, and I could literally.
So it almost sounds like. It almost sounds like Greg, I mean, I don't mean to cut you off, that put you in shooting archery, shooting an arrow in a hunting situation. He put you in a method of a process of every action on your bow, whether it's drawing back, anchoring up, looking through the peep. Everything has a process and a number. And it looks like if you go through that process and number, when you're in that momentum of the status of shooting an animal, because you're kind of going to a different state, everything is crystal clear.
Yep. And that's how it was. It was the first time it's ever been like that. Because usually when I've harvested deer in the past, whether it was a buck or a doe, you know, it didn't matter. Like, I would remember drawing my bow back, and then I would blank after that, and then the next thing I would remember would be watching, you know, after the shot, watching the animal run to try to watch it fall.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this was the first time where it's like I could literally remember, like, I could remember drawing my bow. I was making a conscious decision because I was in a tree saddle. I was like, all right, I'm going to swing behind the tree, draw while I'm behind the tree, and then I'm going to pop out the left side, and she should be getting ready to clear that brush. You know what I mean? And, like, I remember finding my anchor point, making sure I was all locked in. Like, it was just, there was a process, just like you said, and that never happened to me before. And then as soon as I released that arrow, I knew it was good. You know what I mean? Like I didn't even have, there wasn't like there was no second guessing as to whether or not the arrow was true or not. You know, and it was weird because this year too, I made a change to shooting a single pin and setting a pin at 25 yards and then gapping to 35, 37, and then being able to shoot under that, of course, and kind of understanding what my trajectory is at those different distances in between, you know what I mean? And how I have to kind of hold high or hold low, you know, and then spent, you know, plenty of time elevated as well, just because, especially at close distance, because now that I'm having to hold low at close distance, you still have to count. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but it's just, you have to account for that angle, of course, because you need to shoot a little high so you get the pass through the way you want it. And so it was, you know, this deer was at 15 yards, and I put it right, just like right below where the back.
Right on its heart?
Well, I put it right below, it ended, well, where I held it was on the heart, or just a little above the heart, and it ended up entering just below the backstrap and exiting, catching lung and liver, entering the bottom of the rib cage.
Perfect. Yeah.
So it was just like, and it wasn't like a thought about it. It was just like I knew where I needed to hold it. That's where I held it. My process kind of took over, and I went through my steps, and it worked out, man. So it was wild, man. I sat down right after it happened. I was like, man, that's the first time that's ever felt like that.
That's great.
You know,
and it's good. It's great that you mentioned know your bow, know your trajectory, know your angles. I kind of set up a little bit of a different setup this year. I took 2 or 3 pounds off my bow total weight.
Mm-hmm.
And even that, if you take 2 or 3 pounds off your limbs, tune your bow, get a bullet hole, bare shaft tune, that can change your angle tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do after I tune my bow and I get my marks on the ground with broadheads, first I get them with field points out to, like, let's say, I think my hunting bow goes out to 40. I usually don't take a shot past 25, 30 yards, usually in the woods, you know?
Right.
I mean, if I can, I would, but I hunt in, like, real thick stuff.
Right.
So what I do after I get that done, I make sure my broadheads are totally hitting where my field points are. And if you tune it right and your form is good pretty much and you're not tired, it's usually right on the money or close to it. I have an 18-foot ladder stand in my backyard. To make a long story short, I'll take a target and I'll put it at 3 yards. And I'll put my pin, I have a single pin slider, and I'll put it on 20 yards and I'll aim right at that dot just to see, so I know where it's going to hit. And I'll start from 3 yards and make increments out to 20, to a solid 20. So this year with my setup, at 20, with my pin being on my 20-yard mark, from 3 yards to 20, it stays on my 20-yard pin. I'm dead centered every time.
Nice. Yep.
Last year, before I took the weight off, I had to put it on 10 yards. So it made like a 5-yard difference in your angle.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know, man. I've really liked moving to a single pin. The other thing that I did too is I started shooting with both eyes open. That's the other thing I changed.
Yep. I've always done that.
Yeah.
I've never shot with one eye shot.
Yeah, and it made a big difference. And it's funny that as soon as I started doing that, I ended up texting with Greg, and what I had told him was I was like the little bit of target panic, and I don't like to call it target panic because it's just like you have to have a process, and it was more, I would say, it was more anxiety, right, of like anticipating my shot, anticipating my release.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, it was the craziest thing because as soon as I started shooting with both eyes open, because I could see my periphery, all of a sudden that pre-shot apprehension kind of went away because I could see everything. I could see everything around me, and I was able just to kind of like focus in on just watching my pin hover. And it was the weirdest thing. Do
you shoot a regular index trigger release?
I shoot with 2 fingers. Yeah, so it's a trigger release, 2 fingers over. And so what I do is, like, working with him, it's like I basically claw over the top of it, and then I try to shoot it and mimic somewhat of a back tension. That way I'm in 2 knuckles deep. That way I'm not just punching or whatever. So yeah, I was trying to switch to a tension release this year. And I just didn't get to it early enough to make it work for hunting season, so I abandoned it because I didn't want to be trying to get that dialed in and be late to the game on it and end up messing up a shot. So I figured that'll be something I can work on this winter.
Yeah. Check out the Carter 2-shot index finger release. That's got a really nice heavy spring and a nice a gauge into a heavy spring, medium spring, light spring. You can really get your finger around, like you were saying, into like the second pad of your index finger. And you can really pull with your elbow to really pop that shot off. It's a nice crisp release too.
Nice. Yeah, that was one of the things I think Greg recommended that one too. So I'm definitely going to check out a couple different things this winter while I have, because I got in my basement, it's long enough I can usually get off about a 13 to 15 yard shot in my basement where I put my target inside my fireplace as a backstop. Nice. and so I usually shoot in the basement all winter long, and so I'll probably get a different release this winter where I have some time to kill in the indoors and work on that. But enough with the I guess my archery approach and what I'm planning to change this year. I want to get into what's going on with you. But before we jump into all the deer hunting stuff, man, like there might be even like a bigger deal than the deer that you harvested this year. And it's probably maybe even a little bit more important to you. I saw on Instagram that you got your little girl now shooting out of a stand. How cool is that?
Oh man, let me tell you, it's going to be a father's dream come true, and I'm going to do everything I can to keep her interested, to keep going in the woods, and to harvest a deer with a bow and arrow. And I got to be blessed by God that this is going to happen, and I'm going to make sure it happens. And then when I got her up in that tree stand a couple weeks ago, she totally fell in love with it. She goes, "I never want to shoot on the ground again, Dad." I'm like, "Okay, sounds good to me. Love you. I'll see you later." She goes, "Wait, whoa." So it was pretty cool. Yeah, she was in my lattice stand in my backyard, and let me tell you, 20 yards. That kid is putting them in there with a back tension release with broadheads.
Dude, I'm telling you, man. I've watched the videos you've posted of her shooting, man. She's a hell of a shot, man. Like she won some competitions this summer, didn't she?
Yeah, yep. She won a couple, but she's a normal 11-year-old kid. If you try to push it on her and she wants to give it back to you a little bit, no, I don't want to do it now.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it now, but when she does, and I don't push it on her, she really, really enjoys it, and she settles down and really, 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 it's unbelievable. It's just a father sitting back with a big smile on his face that it's all coming together.
Man, I heard that. Whenever you posted that, man, I was like, man, Ricky's got to be smiling ear to ear right now, dude. And I was super happy for you, man, because that is, I know we've talked about this in the past. My daughter, shoots a bow, not as frequently as your little girl shoots, but it always warms my heart whenever she wants to pick up her bow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
So,
no doubt.
So I thought that was super cool and worth mentioning. I'm really interested to kind of continue to watch. Now she has interest to hit the timber, right?
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? November, we have all her hunter safety courses for big game, firearms and bow. Mm-hmm. So she has all certifications this summer, but we have to wait until she turns 12 on November 4th that we can buy her license and she can actually legally hunt, in New York. But being that she's a junior, a minor, I have to be within hand's reach with her. Right. So I'm going to be right there videoing her,
That's
and
awesome.
I'm telling her, like, Sage, what do you think? You going to shoot like a 4-pointer if it walks up? She goes, "No, I'm passing that." I'm like, "Really, huh? You're going to pass a 4-pointer? Well, we're going to get down and go home. How's that?"
Right.
I'm like, "I can't wait to see how you feel when a big doe comes up to you."
Yeah.
She goes, "I'll be fine." I'm like, "Okay, well, you can look back at the video and see how you feel."
Yeah,
we'll see.
I can't wait to see.
So
that,
she's all talk now. So we'll see what
right.
happens.
That's right, man. It'll be funny because it's still, man. It's like for me, man. Even when I see does roll up, man, you still come a little unglued. You know what I mean? It's just like, I'll put it this way, man. The day that I don't get excited when deer approach my stand, no matter what size or buck, doe, whatever, the day that happens is the day that I need to stop. You know what I mean?
And I'm going to stop with you because that is what it's all about.
Exactly. I had a little buck walk up behind me this last weekend before I got that doe, and just a little 5-point. You know what I mean? Young deer. Had plenty of bone for as young as he was. You know what I mean? He was a nice looking young deer, and he rolled up behind me and messed around for a little while. Came to 9 yards, was as close as he got, and just kind of hung out. And I hung out and watched him for probably 30 minutes. And I tell you what, whenever he first started approaching, he wasn't legal. I guess he was legal technically, but there was no chance I was going to draw back on him. But it was even still just watching him approach my stand and just be a deer. Heart started pounding a little bit. Got a little excited. I had to remind myself. I was like, "Hey, calm down. You're not even going to pick up your bow. Just sit back, relax, and watch the show. You know what I mean? Let him be a deer and just enjoy it. But the day that stops happening, is the day I'll stop.
Oh, without a doubt. That happens to me driving down the road. I see a doe in the woods. I flip out. Holy crap! Holy shit! See the deer? Ugh. All right, let's keep going. I'm sorry.
My wife does the same thing. We'll be driving somewhere, and I'll see 2 or 3 deer in a field along the road or somewhere. I'll be like, hey, there's a deer. There's a bunch of deer. And she'll be like, Clint, she's like, you hunt deer religiously. She's like, you see them all the time. Yeah. Why is it so exciting when you see them along the road? I'm like, I don't know. Anytime I see deer, I just get excited. I can't help it. I was like, it's just the thing. But
it's amazing, isn't it?
It is, man. It's something how these animals just kind of grip you, and it's not just the hunt of them, man. It's cool just to watch them, dude. Like just to watch them, in, like their natural. I mean, some of my favorite hunts were days I never drew a bow back and just kind of watched. You know what I mean? Just saw cool stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's nice when you watch them and they tip over too.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I'm never going to turn that down.
Hey, look, I'm watching. Okay, he's done.
So on that note, let's talk about tipping deer over, and let's talk a little bit about what you have going on this year. So before we jump in directly to like the approach, the stand setup, and all that stuff, not necessarily like where you're hunting geographically, but like describe the area that this hunt kind of took place in. Like, what's the terrain look like? What's the habitat look like? Those types of things.
Boy, it's going to be a typical big public land that narrows down into suburban kind of little funnels with a bedding area with a lot of sumac. I guess you can call them like blueberry pricker bushes, because there's like 3 or 4 acres of that. Mm-hmm. And I found this thicket during shed hunting on this public land, big laurel woods that funnels down into the suburban little, kind of like, almost like if you could picture walking into acres and acres and acres of timber, and then it comes down into like little spokes of funnels that goes in between like 3 neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And in between that neighborhood, out of all this acreage, hundreds of acres, is 7 acres of bedding with one parallel run that runs along this bedding area and then into it. It fish hooks into it. If you can kind of picture what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's just, I found this during shed season, like I said already. Mm-hmm. And my hair just stood up, and I found some nice sheds in there. And from there, I just took off and branched off all around this whole area.
Okay. So is that bedding area, like, are you, is it buck bedding? Is it doe bedding? Like that specific area? Like, I'm assuming it's buck bedding, because I'm assuming you were probably hunting the bedding area for this deer specifically.
I really didn't know if I was ever going to see this deer. Mm-hmm. I found his sheds probably a couple 100 yards away from this little bedding area with this one parallel run. Mm-hmm. And I found a couple other nice, one really, really big shed after this one. And I tell you, I wasn't even going to hunt there. I was going to wait for the rut to hunt there. But then the wind switched over here in New York from October 1st, Monday. Instead of it being the traditional north wind like I had last year, of course, I was going to go back to the same tree because, geez, I shot a 166-inch buck opening morning at 7:30 out of that, one of my favorite trees,
Yeah, exactly.
So it's in my mind. I'm like, man, I got to get back in that tree. What if the wind's not right? So like 3 months before opening day, I was on the Weather Channel every day, and they kept changing it. I couldn't sleep. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. It's east now. Where am I going to go with the east wind? And then it was south. Then it was back to north. I could sleep tonight. It went back to north. Oh, right. I was flipping out. You have no idea.
That's funny, man. Like I was watching... Because I was watching it pretty close too, just because I was hunting a couple of those, bigger deer that I had sent you the text, some of those pictures from the swamp, and yeah, I mean it's funny because it's not an exactly kind of same setup that you kind of have going on, but it's kind of this finger of swamp that kind of sits in this like suburban setting between a bunch of like basically a neighborhood, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and everything I was getting on camera with them was on some type of east wind. Right. And so I was like, awesome. I got the east, and it was a northeast wind. I think it northeast wind and an east northeast wind, I think is what it was, or something like that. Anyway, it was some combination of north and east wind, right? So I watched the weather, played my cards right, had a good weather day, that seemed to be setting up right, and got the wind that I needed to get back in there. And I was like, man, it was one of those things where I probably walked in a little too confident, because I was like, man, this is the right wind. I know this is where they're betting because of what, kind of how they're moving by the camera and what I kind of saw whenever I had gone in and done some scouting, just prior to the season and stuff. And I was like, this should be a slam dunk, because like one of them should be coming by, because there's 4 really nice deer in this area. Go in there, get completely skunked, like nothing. And so then I was like, man, I can't believe I didn't even see a deer. You know what I mean? So then I didn't hunt it for like 2 weeks. I ended up going back to my dad's property and hunted that, and then came back and decided to hunt it again, because I was getting the right wind. And so there's a trail camera on my way in that I can check, that I have hanging there, right? Because I kind of go right by it. And so I stopped and picked it up and had a card reader, and I crawled up in my tree saddle and pulled out the card reader and was like, let me take a quick look at this, and see what's going on. And I get in there, and so there's one that's daylight active in there, so I know I'm like right by his bed. You know what I mean? Yeah. He likes to come out sometime between like 12 and 3:30 is when I'm like seeing him now. And all of a sudden now, like before he was working at some type of combination of east and north wind. Now all of a sudden he's showing up and it's a south and west wind. And I'm like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. I was like, so now I'm like completely confused, like as to like when I'm supposed to go hunt this deer, because he keeps showing up on multiple winds in the same place. Yeah. So it's not like I'm catching him like traveling in a different direction on different winds. It's like he's literally showing up the same direction on different combination of winds. So I'm like, well, to me, it almost sounds like he's unpressured, and the winds really aren't mattering to him in a notion of being one direction in one area. Yeah, I mean that swamp's nasty thick. So if he's bedding where I think he's bedding, like there's nobody touching him. You know what I mean? There might be people coming around him. You know what I mean? But they're never getting in probably within 50 yards of him, like tops. You know what I mean? Yeah. From where he's bedding. And I'm sitting like off of him a little bit, like not right up. I mean, I thought I found like his bed, or I thought I found what would be like a primary buck bedding area in there. Like the mature buck would own this area on this piece of ground. Yeah. And I thought I found that whenever I was scouting. And I might be 60 yards from it, maybe. That's how I like to hunt them. I don't like getting in beds. Close. It's like I'm just off of it just enough. But well, the truth of the matter is too, is like if I went in and tried to hunt his bed, like there's nowhere I could really hunt it. Because it's just there's really not a tree you could get into. All the cover in there is probably no more than 4 feet off the ground. You know what I mean? So even getting a shot would be pretty much impossible. So my only chance is really to get him to come out where he's been kind of passing through. You know what I mean? And catch him coming out of bed. That's what I've been trying to work, but he's got me a little confused because I don't know which wind I'm supposed to play, and we'll see. I'm gonna probably hunt him 2 more times and see if I can get on him, and then after that it's off to my dad's property and then Ohio for the rut. But let's go ahead and get back to the story at hand here. So I want to ask you this, and we talked about this a little bit the last time you were on when you killed that big deer last year, but a bunch of folks kind of have this idea, and I've started throwing this away a little bit myself for a couple of different reasons. And I'll kind of explain those to you after I kind of ask you the question. But a lot of folks won't hunt a morning until later in the season. You know what I mean? And this is 2 years in a row now that you've hunted a morning successfully. So I guess what made you kind of, especially because you kind of mentioned like this really wasn't the stand you were really intending to go to on opening day, kind of the wind kind of dictated you make a shift, and so you ended up here. So what was it that, aside from the wind, that kind of drove you to hunt a morning and then hunt this specific location in the morning? Before we continue our conversation, let's talk about Wicked Tree Gear saws. Hardcore deer hunters need hardcore tools. Do yourself a favor and check out Wicked Tree Gear, the toughest hand saws and pull saws on earth. You buy it once, you buy it for life, backed by a lifetime guarantee. Right now, if you use the promo code TRUTH, you'll save 20% on your next purchase with free ground shipping. So head over to wickedtreegear.com
and get a saw that's tough enough to work as hard as you hunt.
Location in the morning.
Well, I knew when I found this at a couple of the really, really nice sheds that I found and the deer that I was blowing out of there back in March, that it was definitely the deer were coming back in there in the morning, obviously from the fields and the ag and the yards, and they're going to feel comfortable and lay down. So if I'm going to hunt it in the morning, I got to sneak in early. And as I get in and go over this one run, I got to go over the one run right in line with my tree. So if they're coming down the run, they pick me up, I can shoot them. They're right in front of me.
Yep.
But it's really, really crazy and awesome, incredible how it happened, because Sage has a lot to do with it, my daughter.
That's awesome.
Once I found out that the winds were definitely going to be south-southwest, that's what the winds were going to be, open in the morning.
Yep.
So we had a week before opening day, and I had ran a couple cameras on a couple runs. Now, I love running my cameras. Once I get in that woods and I find sheds and I really, really scout it, and don't know for a fact, but know enough that in my mind that these runs are feeding this bedding area, or these deer are going to use this run as this edge to check the bedding area. They're going to scent check the bedding area before they fish hook into it. So I'll follow these runs and find out where they're going to wind up and lead up, whether I got to put my camera 2 feet off of a road pointing down this run, like we've talked about last year on other shows that I've been on with you. I just want to know what's coming and going. I don't care if it's 3 o'clock in the morning or 12 in the afternoon, but I know that run is going to lead to where that bedding and where my tree set, where my trees are set up.
Right.
So make a long story short, try to cut to the chase here. Once I found out the wind was going to be south-southwest, it was a Sunday. Sage has to be in bed at 9:30 during the week, and it was like 8 o'clock at night. I'm like, Sage, we got to go for a ride. You got to come for a ride with me. She's like, why? I said, we have to run out in the dark. The deer are out of there already. It'll be quick. Let me go set up a camera in the dark just to see if the deer are using this other run and going into where I want to be open in the morning. So make a long story short, we did it. And, I called it her camera. We went out and had something to eat. So that next Saturday was the Saturday before the Monday of opening day. I went and checked that camera, and there was like 3 shooter bucks that were walking in and out during the daylight. I'm like, holy crap, are you kidding me? So I was really, really stoked. Like 130 inch, like a 120, a big 7-pointer. I mean, walking perfectly. That run is going to wind up right past the trees I want to hunt for a south wind.
Right.
So that kind of really made my decision, and I've never hunted it before. I set up 3 trees in this area, one for a south wind, one for a north and a west, and one for an east. And Clint, I didn't even put tacks in them. I just cleaned them up with my pole saw for a climber in March.
Wow.
And that's the only time I've been in there besides shed hunting. And me way up at the other end of this run with Sage the week before putting that camera up.
That's awesome, man. I mean, that's that's a nice combination of, reading what's going on, and then a lot of folks, whenever they find a place that's enticing like that, are they jump the gun and they get in there too often because they want to check out what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And you just laid back and then got in there, did hang a camera, but you did it at night, right? And you got in there whenever deer were already out feeding, so they weren't really going to be there. You know what I mean? And so you kept the pressure off that way, because a lot of folks will, spend too much time in an area that they really like, and then they kind of ask themselves, why all of a sudden have the deer change what they were doing? Well, it's like the variable is you. They didn't change it because they wanted to. They changed it because they felt they had to, because you were pressuring them. And so you
100%.
You just noticed that, hey, these deer are running in and out of here. It looks like a really good spot. I'm going to lay off. I'm going to clean up a couple trees, dip out, and then I'm going to come in right before the season, hang a camera real quick, check it, confirm what I think I know, and then I'm going to move in. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's funny. So when I was mentioning, hunting mornings, it's one of those things where I didn't really. Now, I'll hunt mornings, I guess, strategically. I won't hunt every time I hunt in October. Well, let me phrase it this way. Every time I hunt in October prior to like the 3rd week of October, if I'm hunting a morning, it's because I think I have a reason to hunt the morning, right? Otherwise I'll hunt the evening.
Yep.
So for example, I've done a couple early season morning hunts in a couple different places. So one was I've done it in the swamp a couple times, I think twice. And the reason was because whenever I was going in like mid-afternoon, and I like to get in early even if I'm doing an evening hunt, it's like I usually like to be in my tree by like no later than like no later than 2:00, like set up, ready to go.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like I usually,
Yeah.
The earlier I can get in, the better, just because I like to have time to sit and kind of settle in and just, you never know when something's going to kind of pop in mid-afternoon too and get weird. If something gets weird, I want to be there.
Oh, no doubt.
And what was happening is this swamp's access is really tough. And every time I was walking in, I was bumping deer. And so I was like, well, if I'm going to get in here, I was like, and if I want to hunt the morning, or early afternoon into the evening, I was like, I need to still get in here ridiculously early. Like I got to try to beat them back to bed. I was like, it's the only way I'm going to be able to do it. So I started hunting mornings in the swamp and just really hunting mornings and getting in there ridiculously early so I could beat them back to bed. So then at least I was set up in my tree and ready to go, if for nothing else, for the evening hunt without bumping anything. And that's what I started doing, and that was when I started seeing deer. I did the same thing at my dad's on September 29th, because it opened September. The season wide opener was the 29th of September here in PA. And so I never hunted my dad's before. Hung cameras all last year and just kind of watched them. So I knew a couple places I wanted to check out. And I went in super early in the morning just because I wanted to see what type of morning activity. Even if I got dark deer, that was fine. I wanted to be in the tree and see what happened in the morning. Even if it wasn't if it was before shooting light and I couldn't see my pins or anything. Got in super early, and what I found out, again, this property doesn't get a lot of pressure because my dad doesn't live there, I don't live there. So we basically travel there to take care of things, and it's get some pressure in the summer when we do some work and check cameras and stuff like that. But otherwise, the deer have the run of the place. And opening day, group of deer comes sauntering through at like 8:00 in the morning, daylight, just rolling through. Huh. And then I hear sparring about, I guess it's about 150 yards away from me. I thought I heard the crack of antlers and stuff together. And I was like, is that sparring? I was like, maybe there's something in a tree that I'm just not, I didn't think much about it. And I was like, then when I got done, I was like, there's a camera up there. I was like, I'm going to go ahead and check that camera and see what's on it. I go up and check it. Sure enough, that morning, buck standing there right in front of the camera, sparring at like 8:15 to like 8:45.
Nice. Shooters or no?
The one's a shooter. Yep, he's one of the shooters on the property. So, and he's pretty daylight active, and so it just goes back to that keeping pressure off. You know what I mean? Like they're just as snug as a bug in a rug on that property. No one's messing with them, and so they're willing to move around in daylight. So that was really my reason for starting to hunt mornings in October, was almost more observation and more as part of my access, really.
Yeah.
But so I want to talk. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
With me in the area that I am in New York, I have so many places to go. I have it all pretty much patterned where I'm going to hunt in the evening. Like I have evening spots, evening thickets, and then I'll have morning. So I can hunt one area in the morning. That's always been a good morning spot without going in and bumping deer out. And then I have my traditional, let's sneak up to the bedding area and let's be as quiet as we can and get up in the tree and let them all come out of their bed and filter past me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right. Nice.
So it's not like I only have 3 spots. I got tons. I mean, like, holy crap.
Yeah. I'm working on that. I'm working on to get a ton. It's I've just recently gotten some. Have gotten places here on the eastern part of the state to hunt, which has been nice. Or I guess I should say, have become more familiar with some of the properties on the eastern part of the state here, where I have a couple different places where I can kind of slip into. Which is nice, because to your point, it's like the other thing is I don't want to burn one place out necessarily, so I'm trying to find different places to where I killed my buck last year. I've got this swamp. I got another piece that's a little further over closer to the New Jersey, PA New Jersey line. So I've got a handful of places, and then of course I go back and hunt our family properties just because I like to do habitat management and stuff like that, and that's where I get to do some of that stuff, plant food plots, cut timber, and do all those things. And it's just kind of fun to watch, deer take advantage of the work that you put in and stuff like that, which is always kind of
which is always kind of fun. But you know, the one thing I wanted to ask you, man, like I know you had trail camera pictures of this guy, you know, or I guess let me confirm that he was one of the deer that you had on that trail camera, right?
The first time in August, after I found these sheds in March and say this is going to be one of my number one spots, I want to try it out. The first camera I put out ever, and I'm not really big with the cameras. Like, I mean, people live and die by cameras. I like putting cameras on runs that are going to feed to where I'm going to hunt, and I'm going to see what I'm going to kill them. Mm-hmm. I had this camera probably, I'm going to say 200-300 yards away on a different run, coming through another little thicket from the ag, from where they're feeding at night. Mm-hmm. And he was my very first picture in August. I pulled the camera after 2 weeks. I think I had like 9 pictures in 2 weeks. Nice. I pulled the camera and I put it in the card reader. I went, holy crap, are you kidding me? And that's the only picture I got of. Then I'll pull the camera. I'll go back like another week. I'll put the camera, I'll leave it there for 2 weeks. You know, I'll have a couple little bucks, but that's it. He was just him. One picture, first time in August, and that was it. Done.
Wow. That's wild.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
I mean, why do you think, do you have any, I guess, kind of working hypotheses as to why you were only why you only caught him that one time? Because it feel like, I mean, especially because you arrowed him there. It's like he had to been living nearby, right? Or do you think he was living in that bedding area, or do you think you were catching him on his bed to food pattern?
No, I think he was definitely living in there because they came from the totally opposite way where I thought they were going to come from.
Okay.
I think he was living there where I shot him, but where I got the picture of him, I got lucky.
Okay.
But it was way out of the way. But one of the runs that do lead to this bedding area, 500, 600, 700 yards away. So I think I got real lucky with the picture, and I got real lucky with killing him where I was because I think that's where he's living.
Okay.
And meandering, he has enough of room, a lot of room to meander around during the day. Because here I am looking up. I mean, we'll get to that when you ask me that question. But that's what I think it was. I think I got lucky with the picture, but where I was set up was totally where I needed to be, 110%.
Right. So before we get into that, because it was good foreshadowing on your part, because that's literally one of my next questions. But so you had mentioned the type of property this was. This was kind of like some fingers that kind of came off of a big piece of a big piece of public. So this particular area that you were hunting, I know you said that this bedding area was like maybe 7 acres. Like, how big was the surrounding area in general? I mean, was it literally just that 7 acres of a finger, or was there additional kind of timber around that was like 50 acres or whatever that was in total?
I'm going to say that it's probably maybe 100 acres.
Okay.
That leads up into this little finger that I was in.
Okay.
Maybe more. It's big public property. Big public land.
Right.
And here I am worrying that someone's going to walk by me.
Right.
Because anyone can hunt it.
Right.
You got the access. You got it. You can park and go.
Right. Right. So what you were just kind of mentioning before, which you got lucky with the picture, but it was really about where your stand setup was. Like, I want to talk a little bit about that because it's one of the things I'm trying to get better at. Is like what you had mentioned earlier was that you kind of had trees kind of prepared for multiple winds in a single location, right? And so I want to get a sense of give us your stand set up, your location. I guess describe for me the terrain that was there and anything interesting specifically about this location and why you kind of placed your stand or your trees that you had marked.
Well, this is what really, really stuck out to me on this particular new spot. First of all, we'll go back to March. I found one of his sheds. My friend Adam found one of his sheds in that bedding area. Mm-hmm. About a mile away, another friend of mine that was with me in this big cornfield found his other side right next to a road.
Okay.
So when I put 2 and 2 together and said, whoa. This one shed is over here and the other shed's over there. So it was almost like it just gave me a total firm understanding on, obviously, from point A to point B, this deer is feeding here and sleeping here.
Right.
So when I went back in and really said, now let's get down to work, and I think Greg might have been with me that day, that I found this spot. My hair stood up. It was like I said, it's like a 7-acre blueberry thicket with some cattails that ventures up into like hollywoods and laurels and hardwoods that goes up into a finger of a house. And there is a run. There's a run. So if you could picture an alleyway coming into this bedding area that just opens up into like 10 acres, a run that is, I mean, dug down to the dirt, and you can stand on top of this hill and watch this run the whole edge of the whole bedding area. It doesn't go into the middle of it. It goes right along the whole edge of it. So the way I love setting up on these primary runs, to me, that's like Greg finding a bed and laying in it. Well, let me lay in the bed and let me make a movie. Right. I had to bust on it a little bit, right? Yeah, hey, I got a bed over here. Okay, good. I'll see you later. Have fun with it. When I see these runs, he's gonna love that. Yeah. When I see these runs, Clint, I'm thinking of a big mature buck or a shooter or a big mature doe getting on these runs, and what that run showed me was that these deer are using this run because they can't see in there. If it's going to be a south wind, because this run was to the north side of this thicket, they like a buck's going to check a bedding area during the rut because he doesn't want to burn all his calories going in there and bulldozing the whole place when there's nothing in there.
Right.
They're going to use their nose to feed their brain with information.
Right.
So these deer are coming from bedding to feeding, from where I found the 2 sheds in March, 2 of my friends, and walking on this run. If you could picture just at sunup or whatever, if they get pushed into there, and that deer will walk on that run confidently and safely with a south wind, with his nose in the air, smelling everything that's going in there to feed his brain to know it's okay to fish hook around the back end of that and lay up in there.
Right.
So what I did with the south wind, I got on the other side of the run and the north side of it, and I cleaned up a nice white oak for my climber. So anything walking on that run is going to have their nose looking into the thicket, and I'm going to be behind them shooting them.
Yeah.
And I can't stress enough how much shed hunting helps killing white-tailed deer, and just putting in some time and figuring out how this deer is using his brain to navigate to live. If you can figure out what a deer's move is by reading the terrain, reading the runs, reading the thickets, reading the bedding areas, and then playing the wind perfect or as much as you can, I don't care if it's a 10-year-old buck. You're going to kill him if you really want to kill him. It's going to be done.
Right.
And to me, when I find a bedding area, I find a run like that, it's amazing.
So whenever you're trying to figure out how to ask this. So when you're playing the wind, right? Are you typically playing the wind aggressively? Like, are you cutting the wind, or are you looking to give the deer the wind almost entirely?
I am so crazy with wind direction. If I know my wind is going to blow into a run that I'm set up on, or where they're coming from, or either blowing into a bed just a little bit, or a thicket, I'm not going to hunt it.
Okay.
There'll be another day. I mean, I have books and charts, not charts, but everything logged out of trees I have, wind direction. I stood next to this tree with my compass. I have it marked on Onyx. If it's going to be a south-southwest, I'm going to hunt the tree for a south-southwest. I'm not going to, if I alter it once and you get a 5-year-old buck that's in there, that's why the guy 10 blocks away is going to kill it, because you screwed up. He went in the back door right to him.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah, it's always just interesting to hear different folks' take on how they hunt the wind and so forth. Just, as you had mentioned, just even different tactics, right? Because like you mentioned, like you're looking at runs and stuff like that, and we're busting on Greg a little bit, with the buck bedding, the bedding stuff, but it's just two guys who hunt differently, but both are really good and accomplished hunters. You know what I mean? And it's like he's looking for buck beds. He's going to try to set up on a buck bed, where you're going, I don't really want the buck bed. I'm going to look for the dominant run that's going to be used to get to a bedding area, and then I'm going to set up on with a south wind on the north side of it, and that's going to be my money spot. And it's just interesting to hear different approaches to trying to kill the same animal.
You know what I mean? And so I'm always constantly trying to pick what works for me. It's like I probably tinge more on the aggressive side of things.
Okay.
Only reason,
what, with the wind direction?
Yeah, like I'm trying to figure out how to say it. Like I won't hunt like a completely wrong wind necessarily, but I will hunt an iffy wind, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
see, that kills me.
Yeah.
That kills me hunting an iffy wind.
Yeah, where I'm going
the whole time in a tree stand, I'm like a sour grape. I'm like, oh no!
You're like breaking out.
What am I doing
in the tree stand? Yeah, it's like I had that on. Well, actually, I had it on the day that I killed that doe. It's like I was set up, outside, what I presumed to be this buck's bedding area, and I kind of knew that the way it was blowing, it was kind of, it was blowing from, I guess, from my back. I was looking at the bedding area. I was behind the tree in my saddle. And I was looking at the bedding area, so it was kind of hitting me in my left ear and kind of splitting what I think to be two separate bedding areas in that swamp. And so the way I was set up, as the wind was holding true, my wind, my scent cone should be kind of splitting the two bedding areas, and they're not really traveling back there. There's a huge run, and I was, was kind of hunting similar to how you hunt. It's like I was kind of setting up on this run, because it's really their only way to get to and from, because the swamp's so thick. They're going to come out, hit this run, and then that's going to take them to wherever they're going to branch off and go, which is kind of what has held true on trail camera, and it's also what has held true on the deer that I've actually seen come through. They've all kind of done the same thing. But I was definitely hunting an iffy wind, and that doe just got arrowed before she had an opportunity to catch that iffy wind, is all it came down to.
That's
perfect.
What I mean? That's perfect. Yeah.
So I'll definitely, like, as I like to say, I like to risk it for the biscuit sometimes. So the other thing is,
I'm going to use that one now. Yeah. I'm definitely using that one. What are you doing? I'm risking it for the biscuit. Get out. Let's go.
Right. That's right.
That's great.
It's illegal. It's illegal in 3 states.
I'm going to tell all my customers tomorrow, hey, what's happening? Have a good weekend. I'm going to risk it for the biscuit.
But the other reason I'll be a little bit aggressive too is just, I do get limited time around here to hunt too. So I'm also not quite as worried about blowing up a spot, because I'm only going to have a handful of times to be able to hunt it. Because like I was mentioning earlier, it's like I take off my time around, the end of October and beginning of November, and then I'll hunt my dad's property. But my dad's property, that's really just a 3.5 day hunt, and then I'll spend 8-9 days in Ohio, and I only have a limited amount of time to get it done in those places. So it's like I have 3.5 days to hunt. I have a handful of stand locations, so if I have to, I'll hunt all of them. You know what I mean? And I'll hunt if and when in all of them if I have to, because I'm not too worried about burning them out.
That's also a factor you got to take into, if you don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to sit back and not hunt all your good stuff because it's not 100% perfect. I understand that.
Yeah. And when I have time, man, it's like, earlier in the season, I'll play it a little safer. You know what I mean? I'll set back off of things a little bit, and unless I have a reason to jump in, but as it gets a little later and gets a little closer to prime time, and then that's when I start kind of getting a little bit more aggressive and still paying attention to the wind, but definitely willing to take some chances, I guess is a way you might put it. But so now the next thing I want to do, man, we kind of covered a lot of like the info that you had on this deer, why you set up where you set up, how you set up your stand location, what wind you were working, and all that stuff. So now what I want to do is, like, I want you to just kind of walk me through the hunt in kind of like totality, and give me like, how far was the hike in? Were there other deer that you saw prior to arrowing him specifically? Did you see him coming? Did it happen quickly? What was the wind, the weather, all that type of stuff. So just kind of walk me through the morning as you were, kind of preparing to arrow this deer.
All right. Well, it's open in the morning, and it's like a tradition. I love getting in early, open in the morning, really early. So I'm going to say it was probably a 20-minute walk from where I could park my truck. Mm-hmm. And like I told you before, the last time I was in there was March. And I went back in there like maybe 10 times after finding sheds, picking the place apart. And last time I went in there with my pole saw, I cleaned up a tree for a south, a northwest-west, and any kind of east-northeast. So I have 3 trees cleaned up, no bright eyes, and I've never been in there in the dark. Mm-hmm. So now here I am panicking that I have like one bright eye, real low or real high, just to get me in the right direction,
Right.
especially when I'm going to hunt on a run, because I want to make sure that I'm going to cross the run if I'm hunting on the other side of it, right where my tree is. So when they pick me up, when they're coming down the run where I walked across it,
Yep.
I can shoot them instead of them busting me 20 yards down the run if I crossed it too far away.
Yep.
So I get in there. Now I'm getting around the thicket and the houses, and it's pitch black. It's probably like 3:30, 3:45. I get in there. I got my stand on the back, got my bow, and for some reason I remember this big fallen pine tree, and it stuck in my mind, but I wasn't 100% sure. It's how crazy I am. and I thought about this. I thought about this pine tree since I got the picture of that deer coming back and checking the camera that Sage and I had put up way on the other end of the property. And I said, I'm sure this pine tree fell, or I remember the deadfall being right in line with the south tree that I cleaned up.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my go-to. And I want to try to cross this run right where I'm going to climb this tree. So I get to this pine tree, and I said, all right, I found the pine. It's a huge black pine that fell. I'm walking along the pine tree, and I'm shining my headlamp. And boom, I see the white oak. So it was perfect.
Nice.
I jumped over the run. I could still see the run in the dark. It's down to the mud, and I get to the pine tree. So now I'm like ecstatic. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I remembered that. And I got to this without anything, just
Nice.
from no onyx. I didn't mark it on onyx, nothing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because I really wasn't planning on hunting here until the rut, or giving it a couple of trials to see how it was, because I've never hunted there before. So got my stand around the tree. First climb of the year. I'm probably 25 feet up in the tree. Climbing as quiet as I can climb. Everything worked perfect. Got my bow up. Got my tree arm in, my bow arm. Got all my stuff all set up. My safety harness on. Sat down, and it's like 10-4. So, and I'll tell you, we're going to go through the hunt. I'm going to tell you everything.
I love it.
I put my head down in my hands, and I said a prayer out loud to God. And I don't want him to take this as I'm not taking this prayer away from anyone that really needs it. But Clint, we're major whitetail hunters, and this is really important to me.
Yep.
And I really want this to come together with my yearly hard work. And I'll tell you, I just prayed to God just like the way it was. I'm a Christian man, and just bless me with this if you can. And I just belted out, to me, a beautiful prayer.
Yep.
So, and we'll get back to that, once we get on to the kill and stuff like that.
Yep.
So, sat in the dark. It's my first time being there. I'm kind of giddy. I'm like, all right, I wonder what's going to happen. It's like a kid on Christmas.
For sure.
And as it's getting light, I can see this run under me. I think I put it on my Instagram story.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a 4-yard shot to the run, So it gets sun up. I don't see anything. The woods is very quiet. 6:30, nothing. So I'm like, all right, here I am thinking about the tree I was in last year, a couple miles away. And I'm like, oh man, I wonder what's going by there right now.
Right.
That was the best opening morning in my life, and
Right.
I even prayed to God that morning too for that,
Right.
So I kind of wanted to make sure I did everything the same clothes, same pants, same boots, because, that's just me. It's in my mind.
Yep.
So 7 o'clock comes along, nothing. I'm texting Greg and texting a bunch of other people, that I'm hunting with and stuff. I said, I haven't seen nothing, but now I'm ready to stay all day. I'm not leaving.
Yep.
I got cappuccino in my bag. I got a couple of bags of trail mix and stuff. I'm not leaving. I'm staying right till dark all day long. So I'm going to say right around 10 to 8 maybe. I'm sitting here looking up the run from where they're coming from, the ag, which I'm thinking that these deer are coming and going from.
Right.
And I keep bending down and kneeling and looking up this run up the hill. And then all of a sudden, I look to my left from behind me, coming up the other end of the run, and a rack just totally took me off guard. So with that, I see a rack like 15 yards from me walking on this run. I just totally turned around and put my hand in the sling of my bow. I got my hinge out of my pack. I took my bow off. I hooked it up. I turned, and I looked at him. Now he's almost right where I crossed that run, right 4 yards right in front of me. So I'm like, oh man, it looked like a real nice 9-pointer with like a big kicker coming off his base, like a curly cue that went like 6-7 inches off his base. So he's probably like a 120-inch buck, but nice and solid, big body. So right away, I'm like, I'm shooting him. That's it. It's open in the morning. I am shooting this buck. I've been waiting all year for this. Doesn't have to be a giant. Right. You know, it's a beautiful buck to me.
Yep.
It'll be a beautiful bow kill, beautiful morning at work. So with that, I turn just a little bit. I put the bow down. I get my elbow up. I'm just starting to draw the bow. And boy, something catches my eye behind him. But there's like trees in the way because the run comes around a bend. And all I could see when I look around that bend is 2 main beams on either side of the run. I'm like, holy crap, are you kidding me? No way. So with that, he's walking, and I see this freaking giant. I'm like, I can't even believe this is happening right now. So with that, the deer that I was going to shoot, the 9-pointer, is just starting to get where I walked across the run. It stopped, and it stomped its foot once, and it's looking around. So now I'm concentrated on this wider buck, and he's quartering to a good bit. And I said, now, you know, obviously this is the one I'm shooting. I'm not shooting the first one I wanted to. But now I know this deer is getting crazy. He's starting to smell the air. He stomped once. I'm like, I got to do this or I'm done. It's got to happen now. Came to full draw, like we talked about before. I went through my process. It was perfect. Crystal clear. Got my grip, got my elbow position, got my anchor point. I shut my left eye to line up my scope with the peep. I brought the pin down and put it right behind his front leg tight. But his beam was in the way. So here I am. I got my pin right on the crease of this buck's leg, and the tip of his main beam is in the way because he's so wide. So now I'm like, all right, before I can't take my thumb off the peg of this release till he moves his head. So then he moves his head, and then my thumb comes off. And, boy, I just buried that pin right behind that shoulder and just started pulling and waited and pulling and waited. And, boy, I tell you, I hit him perfect.
Nice.
I hit him perfect. So I hit him. He jumps off the run, runs about 30, 40 yards, and instantly lays down. Lays right down in the middle of the hardwoods. So now I'm still crouched over looking at him, and he's down, and he's like picking his head up and like shaking it, putting his head down like he wants to go to sleep. Mm-hmm. With that, after like a minute, he stands up, and his tail is flickering. Like, that's a telltale sign of a deer dying. Yep. If their tail starts flickering real fast like that,
yep.
I've seen that a lot of times. So now in my mind, I know my shot's quartering too because I had to do that. So I know I went in right where I wanted to go in, but I don't know if I'm coming out by his back leg, coming out the middle of his ribs, or coming out the back of his lungs, you know, right. Liver, guts, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So now he's right on the edge of this thicket, and he stands up, his tail's flickering like crazy, and he steps away. He takes like 3 steps to the right, and I can't see him anymore. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Now I'm like, no way, you got to be kidding me. So now this other buck is still standing there like, what the hell is that? So I could have shot him too. But so that was it. And from that time on, you know, I talked to my friend Adam and Greg and my friend Steve D'Ambrosio. Great guy. I want to mention him. Awesome bow hunter. We got real close past couple of years. My friend Lou. I'm not going near that bed where I saw that deer die for at least noon, at least 12:30,
right.
100%. So here I am, and then after that, I had like maybe 11 does come in. You know, as the period I was waiting, right. I probably sat in the tree for another hour until I got down and walked around a little bit and tried to fall asleep on a log and played chess with myself and talked to 9 other people. I phoned friends. Can I go over there now or no? Should I?
Right.
I was kind of like going crazy. I'm like, this is killing me. It's 80 yards right there, and I can't go over there.
That's funny.
But as I replayed it in my mind, and I'm telling my friend Lou and Adam and them, I said, I think it's the buck I got the picture of. The only picture, the first time I put my camera up in August. I'm pretty sure it's him. And it wound up being him.
So where did you end up arrowing him? Like, what was the entrance and exit?
The entrance was right tight to the left shoulder if he's coming to you. And it came out almost perfect. Like right behind the lungs. Like, you know what, if you look underneath the deer, if you're hanging them and you hold the front legs up,
Yep.
you know the white right on their brisket?
Yep.
It came right out of that white spot in the brisket. So it was almost straight down because it was like a 5-yard shot.
Yeah.
So instead of it being a further shot with a flatter trajectory, it was more in and out, straight down.
Right.
And he was dead. That where I saw him disappear, he disappeared because he fell over.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah. I was actually thinking,
done, but
I was actually thinking that when you mentioned that, I was like, that sounds like a deer tipped over.
Yeah, but I just didn't see it. So
yeah. Better safe than sorry, though.
I can't tell you, through the years, it's better to wait when you haven't seen him fall over or hear him fall over, you know?
Yeah. So you're walking up. So it finally gets to the point. You finish playing chess. You finish phoning a friend. You woke up off your log. You woke up off your log like Father Time. You're walking up to this buck. So what are you thinking as you're walking up to find this buck?
Well, I had an arrow nock, and I called my friend Lou, and I said, Lou, drive up to where my truck is and wait there, and I'm going to walk up to the bed right now, and I'm going to see what I got in the bed. So I walk up to the bed where I thought the bed was, and the bed was, first of all, right where I shot the deer, there was blood all over the place, right where my arrow was on the run, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I walk up to the bed, and the bed is full of blood. And you can see with a deer, where I watched him walk away, I told you about, it's just pouring straight out of him. Like someone's just taking a Coke can and just pouring and walking and making like a straight line with it.
Right.
And he was laying right there facing me. And man, let me tell you, I couldn't even believe what my eyes were seeing. Seeing this deer 23, 24 inches wide laying there like that. I was totally beside myself.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It is totally crazy. Totally honored, humbled, incredible feeling. And I don't even think that you could pay for this. It's unreal.
Yeah.
It's totally, I really can't even explain it. It's just the way a woodsman, a bow hunter connects like that and figures it out after.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of get that? You almost figure out the whole scene afterwards and say, oh my gosh, this is how it happened and this is why it happened.
Yeah. No, that's one
you know
of the
what
coolest.
I mean? You
yeah,
connect the dots after.
Yeah, 100%. Because I mean, the thing is like when you're doing the hunt, it's like you're dealing with partial puzzle pieces, right? Like, because you don't ever have the animal. You know, I mean, you have pictures of him, right? You have the sheds of him. You know, maybe you even did an observation set, and I know that you didn't in this case, but like, just say for instance that you did, and like maybe you saw a visual right at one point, and he was 60 yards away or whatever. But it's like it doesn't, like the whole picture doesn't come together until like that harvest happens, because then it's like it's like it paints the full picture. It's like, oh, this is how he's living.
Yeah.
You know, this is how he's working this. This is how it's just, I mean, you're 100% right, man. It's one of those, and there's a little part of me, and I don't know if this is the case with you or not, but there's a little part of me after that where I'm like, man, I almost wish it didn't end because I'd love to play this one over again. You know?
No. I like when it ends. I want it to end.
Right. But I mean,
I never say, "Oh man, maybe I wish I didn't shoot this 160." No, it's ended. It's done. I love you, and you're going on the wall. And next.
No, I mean, I 100% agree with you. You know, it's like,
hi, my name's Clint. I didn't want it to end.
Right. But there's just a little part of me though where it's like, man, I want to. Not that you want to give that buck back necessarily. I guess let me put it that way. It's not that I want to give it back.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
You know, but you're like, man, I'd love to redo that just because I want to do that again. Yeah, you know what I mean? Because the way it came together and the way the puzzle pieces I had to put together and stuff like that, like that's always like part of the fun.
What's so crazy about this kind of feeling I'm talking about is I didn't know the buck all that well. Mm-hmm. I just stumbled across this area looking for sheds. And I found his sheds not knowing I had his sheds. And then I got a picture of him totally far away from where I hunted and killed him and figured it out after and said, holy crap, I can't believe I stumbled upon this because of shed hunting. And I put the puzzle together, not really knowing what the puzzle was before it was put together, but it came together.
Yep. 100%.
It's almost like, it's an incredible feeling.
Yeah.
You put together a mature whitetail's movement, a mature whitetail's bedding, feeding, sheds, a picture. So now what I'm saying is where you find sheds and where you have a picture is probably 95% not where you're going to kill them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where people go in the woods and find a massive finger of rubs and scrapes and holy crap, I'm going to set up a freaking shop here for a month.
Yep.
You're probably going to kill that buck a mile away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny.
So if you could think like a mature buck, find these signs and say, all right, now let me get away from here and find some more with subtle signs where this buck would feel comfortable. And that's kind of what I did, not knowing I did it until I did it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make any sense?
No, it totally does. It's funny that you mentioned that too, because it's one of the things that I'm trying to do, I guess, more of this year, because, you know, especially hunting like so those bucks I'm hunting in the swamp and here in the eastern part of the state, never saw them ever in my life. I hung one camera. It was just on a run that looked to be heavily used, and it was more just like inventory, right? And I did some scouting around there. I was like, all right, here's some places where I feel like deer are probably bedding, and this is where this run is at, and you know, they have food in this direction and this direction, so this is probably how they would maybe use it, you know. And so I started trying to put pieces together without having the animal piece, and then I see those deer on camera, and I'm like, okay, that's another piece of the puzzle, but I'm not hunting a deer that I know at all. I'm hunting, I'm hunting more, I guess, the terrain and like the habitat than I am the deer per se. You know what I mean? Because I'm trying.
And that's how I hunt. That's exactly how I hunt. I don't pick out one deer and be like, that's it. I'm going for this one. No. I'm in the right area because he's there. That's the first clue. Right. But look, let's hunt. Let's hunt how these things are going to go. If I get lucky, I get lucky. You know. Right,
and so that's So that's how I hunt whenever I'm hunting, you know, all the public that I'm hunting around here. It's a little different when I go back to say like hunt my dad's place and stuff like that, because, you know, I've watched it for, you know, going on 2 years now. You know, I watched it for a full season before I hunted it and stuff like that. And so there are, you know, 3 shooters on the property, and 2 of those shooters I watched last year on camera, on multiple cameras. You know what I mean? So you do start to get to know them a little bit. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of playing a little bit of both, and I explained this on a previous podcast, but it's like, you know, and you can kind of, you know, attest to this, you know, hunting in New York, which is, you know, a pretty highly pressured state as well. It's like getting a deer to make it from one year to the next in high pressure states is hard. You know what I mean? So it's like, when you have a nice 3-year-old deer or a 4-year-old or whatever, it's like there's very few guarantees that he's going to make it through to the next season. You know what I mean? So, you know, being able to watch a deer for multiple years for me, even on private ground in PA, is pretty challenging. You know what I mean? When I say watch him for multiple years, watch him for multiple years when he's a shooter. You know what I mean? So
without a doubt.
You know, so for me this year, it's like the 3 deer that we have on the property as shooters. This is the first year that they're actually shooters. They weren't shooters last year. I just remember them because I have pictures, and you know, I can kind of distinguish them with their rack features. You know what I mean? or you know, different body features and stuff like that. But this is the first year that they're shooters, and you know, so I try not to hunt specific deer even on private property, only because I can't guarantee I'm going to be able to hunt him multiple years. So what I try to do is I try to still just hunt the terrain, and I try to hunt terrain features that the most mature and dominant deer on the property use. Because if dominant deer and mature deer are using those terrain features, there stands a really good chance that that's going to be terrain features that mature deer year after year are going to continue to use, because it's the best, you know, features for them to, you know, stay hidden, stay covered, and travel with you know, with safety. So
I totally agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah. So that's, you know, I had an opportunity to hunt a deer, you know, one deer one time for multiple years when he was a mature deer, and I put the pieces together, and it was a great hunt, and he just wouldn't come the last like 5 feet I needed him to come, and then he got, you know, killed during gun season. But, you know, those are the breaks. You know, it is what it is, and that was really what kind of changed my mindset of like, instead of hunting a specific deer, I'm going to hunt mature deer that use the terrain features that mature deer typically use in these areas. And so,
Yep. I agree.
So we'll see how it pans out for me this year. So, I'll keep you abreast, of course, of how that kind of works. But I know, I've kept you here just for a little over an hour, and I could talk to you all night about this stuff. But I want to be sensitive to your time. So I do have one more question for you before I let you go. I want to get a sense from you, man. Because I'm going to just say it this way. I feel pretty fortunate. I got a bunch of guys I consider good buddies that I think are really some exceptional hunters. And you're definitely, and you're one of them. You know what I mean? That you get it done, but it's not just you getting it done. It's the way you think and the way you kind of take the woods apart and figure out what an animal's doing and how the terrain's going to work and stuff like that. So I wanted to get a sense from you as to what you think the key to your success is this year. If you had to boil it down to just one thing, if I said, Rick, tell me one reason why you got it done this year, or you got it done last year, or maybe you get it done any year, whatever it is. What's that one thing you think that you do that really kind of allows you to be successful?
Well, this year, it really stands out to me on this hunt. Again, October 1st, opening day. I think by me staying out of there since March and not disrupting the bedding area and the travel corridor, from what I found and thought I had put together the right way, my instincts, and by me using the little bit of the camera work that I did way, way far away from where I'm going to hunt. When you walk through the woods, it's a major deal.
Mm-hmm.
If you walk up a run or down a run, just because you're out of there, your smell on the ground is going to stay there for a long time, maybe weeks, months, maybe a month. Rain, snow. The nose on the deer is totally, totally incredible. It's unreal.
Mm-hmm.
So I think my thing was, I didn't plan on hunting there opening day, but like I said before, all the puzzle pieces came together in the end by not by accident, but a light bulb went on. This is what happened. I wasn't in there the whole time. I got a picture from the deer half a mile away, only one picture. I got one of his sheds in a bedding area. The other one of his sheds a mile and a half away, 2 miles away, in the middle of a freaking field. And look, I'm going to say, to answer your question, was I left it alone and didn't step foot in there from March until October 1st, 3 hours before the sun came up. and found that pine tree and got across that run in the right spot. I think by staying out of there and crossing that run where I crossed it, that's what killed that buck. If I would have crossed that run and not found that pine tree because I didn't have any bright eyes or tacks in that woods, and I would have crossed it 15 yards down where I shot the buck I shot, game might have been over. I could have watched tails running the other way like, holy crap, now there's someone in here. Let's get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think the human presence and the safety of a deer left alone and played the right way, that's what's going to kill a deer.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you, man. I mean, I think if I were going to, I agree, man. You kept pressure off the place. And that was
it's a big thing.
That was the key, man.
That's a big factor.
Yeah. I think sometimes, I think sometimes we as whitetail hunters get inside of our own heads too much too and overthink. You know what I mean? They really want a handful of things. They want to, first and foremost, they want to be safe, right? So whatever you can do to make them feel safe is in your benefit. They want to eat, and they want to procreate during a very short period of the year.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Those are the three things that they're really focused on doing. And 95% of the year it's focused on staying safe and, staying alive and eating, And so you just think of those two things and prioritize making sure that they continue to feel safe, and whatever that means, whether that means you just let it alone or you make sure that your access is right. Because that was one thing that I was mentioning about this swamp with the access. It was like one thing I figured out, like one way I started getting in, there's a low spot in there that, because we've had so much rain, it's kind of like a little stream that runs, almost cuts it in half. And when I walk in, I can walk in directly to that little drainage runoff, and then I walk the water down, and it runs within like 5 feet of one of the trees I want to climb, that I want to get into.
Oh, that's nice.
And I walk that thing straight down, and it's amazing. The deer that have crossed where I've walked into my tree, they hit that water. It's like, I mean, they have no clue that I'm there. You know what I mean?
That's great.
I just walk.
That's really cool. Yeah.
I just walked that little waterway down, and it kind of sucks because I tripped and I may have fell down and splashed around in it the one morning. But
well, to me that's cheating. You can't walk the water. You got to walk on the ground.
Right.
You can't walk in the water. If I can't walk in the water, that's cheating.
Right. Awesome, man. Well, hey, dude,
that's great.
I'm going to go ahead and let you get going, man. I want to be sensitive to your time, let you get into the house and out of your truck. But I do appreciate you coming on and kind of giving me the deets of the story. And congratulations again, man. Awesome deer, awesome buck. And
thank you so much.
Yeah, it'd be hard pressed to find a better guy, more deserving that puts the work in to get it done, opening day. So congratulations. I hope that we can continue our annual conversation in October, talking about the hammer that you tag.
Yeah, man, without a doubt. Well, I got the rest of this week, and I'm on vacation for 4 weeks.
Well, there you go.
Maybe we'll talk again.
We might be talking again. If I know you, there's a good chance. All right, brother. You have a good night, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the kind words.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. We'd like to thank Rick for joining us, and of course, thank all of you for listening. If you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating. And while you're there, go ahead and give us a subscribe on the old iTunes podcast subscription. We'd be super appreciative if you'd be able to do those two things for us. And before we shut this thing down, we need to give a big shout out to our partners that continue to help us make this podcast possible. Wicked Tree Gear, Exodus Outdoor Gear, Trophy Ridge, Ozonics, Obsession Bows, Tecumani Seed, Glacier Coolers, Ramcat Broadheads, Trophy Taker Rests, and Dead Downwind. And until next time, we'll see y'all.
November's on my heels, makes me proud, makes me steal. I could show you through the door, I ain't welcome anymore. A long time coming, if it all, it takes a special knowing to color for damaged heads, broken letters. Rationalize yourself in numbers.